All right, here's some brief notes for lesson 2.2. It does say here, lesson 2.2, segments and properties of real numbers, but our focus is going to be on betweenness. So take a look at, hey, if you have a group of friends going to the Centerville High School band concert, Anna and Lewis arrived early to save a row of seats. When Keisha and Mara arrive, they sit between Anna and Louise. So in geometry, we also talk about betweenness, just like if you were saving seats between two people. Let a line represent the row of seats. So this row of seats is represented by this line. And let points on that line represent students. So guess what point Keisha represents? Yeah, it's going to be point K. Mara is going to be represented by M. And they're going to sit between Anna and Lewis, or Luis. And there's L there. So points K and M are between A and L. That's the idea of betweenness. So K and M are between the A and L. Points K and M are between. Pretty simple concept, right? And let's see, it also talks about, so they're not between Anna and Luis, Sonia and Bill. So Sonia is here and Bill is here. Notice they're not between, even though it might look like it, because they're not on the same line. They have to be collinear. That's another key point here. So to be between, they have to be on the same line. They have to be collinear. All right, so here's this line. You have these other two people, other two students that are not between the A and the L because they're not on the same line. All right, I hope that's enough repeating on that one. Let's move on. Okay, here's the most important part of the lesson, the definition of betweenness. Point R is between points P and Q if and only if R, P, and Q are collinear. They're all in the same line. We just talked about that, have to be in the same line. And the distance of P to R added to the distance to Q to R to Q is equal to the distance of P to Q. Let me use a highlighter. So we're talking about the distance of P to R, which is P to R right there. And the distance from R to Q right there, has to be the total distance from P all the way to Q. Kind of makes sense. That distance and this distance has to equal the bigger distance there. That's the definition of betweenness. Now let's apply that. This is where it gets fun and using our reasoning skills. Let's slide it up. Let's talk about example number 1. Points A, B, and C are collinear. AB is 12, BC is 47, AC is 35. Determine which point is between the other two. I'm going to start by, let me just grab my black marker here. So I have this line, and I know that from A to B is 12. That's a 12 distance. That's what it says right there. Then it says from B to C is 47. Well, could I put C here? Because from B to C would be 47. Well, this distance is less than 12, so it can't be there. So C is going to be somewhere else. I'm going to put C out here. So if C is out here, we could say, we know that B to C is 47. So let me emphasize that again. Okay, so A to B is 12, so from point A to point B is 12. And then B to C is 47, so B to C is 47. The next statement says A to C has to be 35. So looking at what I have here, from A to C would have to be 35. And that is not reasonable because from A to B plus B to C, that distance, if you add those together, that would be 59, not 35. So I know this can't be right. B cannot be in between A and C. So I'm going to go back to the drawing board here. So before I erase that, I'm just going to go down here and say, all right, I'm going to start at A. Okay, and maybe it's A to B. Oh, wait a second. Let's do it this way. Let's start with B here. Nope. I have another idea. Let's go with C here. And let's go with A here. And let's go with B here. And let's see what that does. So A to B is 12. Here's 12. And B to C is all the way from the C all the way to the B. That has to be 47. And then A to C is 35. Now that makes more sense. Because if I add the 35, that distance right there, to the distance from A to B, which is the 12, I would get 47. So to answer number one, this example right here, to answer this example, which point is between the other two? I would have to say A is between C and B. And the reason is because of the picture right here. So A is between B and C. That's how I would answer it. So this would be my scratch work. Didn't work out. And I know then that to put A in between, and that did work. All right, so let's do one more like that. Some of you are going to catch on pretty quickly. So let's do one more. So there's 3 segment measures that are given. 3 points named or collinear. Determine which point is between the other two. Let's do C. So we have P to Q is 34, Q to R is 71, P to R is 37. So I have this number line. I have this line, and I know I have a P, Q, and an R, and I need to determine which one goes there. Would this be P, Q, and R? If it is, P to Q is 34, that distance from here to here. From Q to R is 71. And if you add those together, that's going to be over 100. But it's supposed to be 37. So I know that can't work. So I go to my drawing board. I take my eraser or just redo it on another number line. Let me erase first. So I'm just going to switch the Q and the R around. Let's do P, R, and Q. Let's try R in the middle. Now that doesn't work. I have to put P in the middle. So P to Q is 34, and Q to R is 71, and R to P is 37. That doesn't make sense because 37 plus 71 is over 100. So that wouldn't work either. So that means P must be the one in the middle. Let's put R here. Let's put P here. So I know P to Q is 34. P to Q is 34. I know P to R is 37. So the whole distance from here to here from Q to R is 71. And that makes sense because if you add the 37 and the 34, you're going to get 71. So P has to be in the middle. That answers the question.